Last year was about awareness. 2026 is all about action. In 2025, we had big ideas, systems, sustainability, and food world thinking ahead. This year, we're getting real. How people actually cook, eat, and enjoy their meals. Here on Vancouver Island, we're lucky with farms, fishing, forests, all right in our own backyard. This means trends often land here first, and we're going to get out there and show them off before anyone else can. So grab a snack, pour yourself a drink, and join us as we dig into the food trends of 2026.
Welcome to the Edible Valley Podcast.
We want to invite you as we embark on a culinary journey through the heart of Vancouver Island.
From the fertile fields
to the pristine waters of the Pacific Ocean.
We'll explore the stories behind the food that nourishes us.
Tune in to each episode as we deep dive into the flavors, the traditions, and the innovations that make this a true paradise.
Now please join us as we explore our Edible Valley.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Edible Valley Podcast. I'm Chef Jonathan Frazier, and unfortunately today, our young William, as I like to call him, is still in England on his way. I believe he's actually flying back today.
Is he really?
Yes.
So clearly I am not William. My British accent is sorely lacking.
Yes.
Yes.
So, of course, I have here with me.
Hello, I'm Erin Haluschak.
And if you remember last year, Erin was actually a part of our 2025.
That's true. I was like a kind of not an unwilling guest, but a maybe unexpected guest. I remember the two of you were recording this particular podcast on the food trends of 2025. And I was kind of lurking, for lack of a better word, in the background, and kind of got pulled in, and happily so.
Yes.
It was a good episode.
There was lots of spinny wheels, lots of laughs.
I love the spinny wheel.
But today we're going to mix things up because I thought since William's not here,
Yes.
and we are fresh into 2026, and with everything in the world going as crazy it is, I thought it'd be fun to just talk about some really cool up and coming food trends and see how close we were with last year's trends, and maybe seeing how things are going to change. I mean, these are all predictions, and who knows how things actually roll out at the end of the day, because it's always interesting when you're talking about food.
And I think in the start of a new year, I know in my job, we love lists at the beginning of a year for like top things or like best of, all those sorts of things. So I think when it comes to food, having a prediction list of food trends, and people love food, people love trends. So what a better combo than the food trends of 2026.
So let's get into this. Well, let's actually talk about some of like 2025's. Like, I wanted just to reflect a little bit about some of the things we were talking about. And I think it's been for many years, but sustainable awareness is one thing that people have been really concentrating on and really thinking on. And I think that probably we'll move forward a bit on that this year. Gut health conversation, because you know what? The stuff in our stomach really affects how we live, right?
Yes.
A little bit of technical curiosity for last year that we predicted, just with menus going more digital. And I think you've been seeing a lot of that.
The love-hate relationship with the QR codes.
The QR codes are everywhere now. And it's actually, in some ways, it's great because you get to see the menu a little bit more in detail than that. And for restaurateurs, it's really easy to change up the menu too. Yeah. And then, of course, global flavors as inspiration, I think, was one of those ones.
So I have a question.
Yes.
How far off, looking back to what you and William predicted last year, were you on the trends of 2025?
I think we did fairly decent.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, we weren't 100. I think we were predicting restaurants were to go a little more digital than they have gone. And then, but like, I think a lot of the conversations are still the same conversations.
Right.
And a lot of the food ingredients are a lot of the same, trying to go for healthier, like I think last year was a little bit more protein heavy, talking about that. And I think this year we're looking at more of, I think as we'll get into it, is sort of maybe different food and how it functions in our diet.
I like it.
So.
All right. So we're leaving keto behind and we're looking for balance is what I'm hearing.
We're looking for balance in our food, right? Yeah. And of course, these are just predictions, and who knows how the world turns out, how things will change. So
fair. Well, I think that's a perfect segue to lead us into our food trend number one that I think we should chat about is functional food island style.
Yes.
does that mean?
Well, let's get into that a little bit, because I think last year we talked about, as I was saying, gut health.
Yes.
And I think this way is maybe we need to look at our menus a little bit differently and going a little bit more fiber forward menus, right?
Fiber forward.
Yeah, like me doing my research and just saying, that's one of the aspects that we haven't really talked about in food trends in the last few years, Just help with digestion. I think increasing like beans and grains, vegetables, maybe some, especially like here on the island, fermented foods, because I know there's a lot of trends with people bringing those. And that's just something you can add to your diet, I think. It just adds a lot of extra nutrition to you, right? And helps clear the system out too.
Literally.
As in what fiber is supposed to do, right?
I feel like insert William joke here.
We're missing William. There would be a flatulent joke going on for sure.
I think more than that.
Yeah, so that was just one of the ones that I was thinking. That fiber is something that we're going to be seeing a little more conversation about those things. The other thing I was looking at, especially being here on Vancouver Island, that we're so lucky, is mushrooms, right? For our brain, for stress, and for focus. Not only for that, it's an amazing amount of umami in that. So
also, you just never know when you're harvesting mushrooms in the wild.
That's right.
It's a bit of a risky game. So if you want some food fun, that's one way of finding out. But your advice, because you've been on a couple of foraging tours on the island, specifically around mushrooms, is
for sure.
If you don't know what you're looking for, maybe don't risk it.
Don't risk it. Yeah, there's so many mushrooms out there, unless you actually know what you're dealing with. Probably not the best. And if you find something, there's lots of experts to reach out to. I always, looking in a book and reading it up is always a start to be like, maybe this is something, but actually going to someone and talking to them is much better.
Right.
Just to make sure everything's good.
Yeah.
But we're also really lucky because there's a lot of mushroom growers who are bringing a lot of different mushrooms. So like lion's mane, which is a big one that's coming in. All of those kind of mushrooms are like really helpful in good food trends and, showing up in meals every day.
Right.
So,
well, let's move on to food trend number 2, which is elevated comfort and budget bougie. I like the sounds of that.
Well, yeah, because last year we were talking about restaurants' creativity and mixing up menus and then having dining out experiences. And I think people are really interested in that, but I think people are looking for real good flavor now.
Right.
I think that's sort of the thing. I think a lot of this is revisiting classic dishes. And I've been saying this for a few years, and it's something that I've always looked at.
So you're laying claim to this trend.
Maybe I'm not laying claim to this, but when I read about this one, that's one of the up and coming, I was like, and I definitely see it as a culinary instructor, is going back to those classic dishes and revisiting them, because a lot of these great stews and soups, like roasted vegetable sandwiches, making them better.
Right.
And that's
what do you mean making them better?
Just elevating the quality of the ingredients in it, making the flavors taste, maybe using a better product in those, taking those things, you can break them apart and elevate them in so many different ways, right? I know there was a few years we had deconstructing where we broke down dishes and broke it to its components and tried to assemble them on the plate. And I think a lot of what we're looking at is revisiting and bringing those foods back together so that we can enjoy them together. So
you just break them down to bring them back together.
Yeah, and I don't think it's all about being fancy, right? It's being flavorful and having technique and using quality ingredients. And another thing I think it falls really well into is seasonal products.
Right.
And I think that's something we're all going to have to look at just with food security.
And the cost of food too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was looking at, because it really is getting back into frozen meals. I think this is something...
That's a dirty word sometimes, right? When it comes to, especially you're talking about elevated culinary experiences, to bring the word, the sentence frozen food or frozen meals into it is kind of dangerous territory.
It's kind of dangerous because we always think it's cheaper, higher quality.
And not really nutritionally solid either.
Yeah. Whereas we have to start looking, I think we can look at it a different way, because I think there's a lot of producers that are putting way more energy into making better food. And when you think about it, most vegetables that are frozen come right off the farm. They're at their highest peak point. They're not being transported and losing all their sugars and vitamins and stuff. It's all right there, right from the beginning. So they're pretty much, when you're getting them, they're nice and frozen. They're super healthy, lots of vitamin, lots of nutrition for you. So building those into making meals, gourmet meals that are easy to reheat, throw in the oven.
Yeah.
even throw in the microwave. I think those are kind of the ones that are really going to start standing out. And I think, too, we've got a lot of small-scale producers out there that are starting to make these products that you can go out and purchase. Because a lot of the stuff is time-consuming. So finding a spot like a really good bakery, I know definitely in this area, and even on Vancouver Island, we've got some amazing bakeries that are sort of getting away from the old style and getting more into the artisan-style breads and really putting some effort in. You know, nice soup spots, over-the-counter sandwiches, right? Like really elevating.
We had some good ones over the weekend.
Oh my God. As in one of my favorite places, hidden into the old butcher's block, you know, amazing sandwiches.
Amazing vegetarian sandwiches. The irony there is not lost.
That's right. My wife goes to a butcher shop to get a vegetarian sandwich because it's one of her favorites in town. So,
yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go into food trend number 3, which is global flavors with regional depth.
Well, and last year we were looking at fusion and flavor explorations, right? Seeing how we can combine, you know, local ingredients with, you know, other different global things. And I think that's a trend that we're going to sort of develop a little bit more into recipes. And I think we're going to look at like a lot of Eastern European, some Southern Asian, and definitely some Japanese influence. And this is the one I'm getting, like Eastern European. I think like cabbage is one of those.
You consider it a very underrated vegetable, don't you?
Well, I totally do. And it was, and honestly, it's popped up on a whole bunch of my research here as cabbage. And so Eastern European, we're talking pierogies, cabbage roll, borscht, hearty stews, right? Amazing dishes. And I'm just looking at cabbage as one of those ones, like literally, you know, food prices are getting expensive. A head of cabbage is cheap.
Yeah.
Really, for what you get when you consider it.
And you could do a lot with it, which I've learned.
Yeah, and you could do a ton with it. You know, even from the fact that when we were at the farmer's market and we did a dinner, that was a Christmas dinner, and we auctioned off 2 turkeys. And I've got a little segue here, but those went out to 2 lovely people who, one woman always invites a group of people over after Christmas. You know, the people that didn't, you know, she does her family thing, and then she always has a family or a friend get together. And so she used the turkey for that. And the other one was a woman who had a lot going on in her life. Lots of family and kids and all that. And she was a little intimidated by this whole turkey that was stuffed and rolled. And once Chef Leslie explained to her everything, she was like, oh, this is going to be easy. And she's like, I'm pretty sure we saved you about 4 hours of work on the Christmas dinner.
Even more incentive to go to the farmer's market now, because you never know what you might get there.
Exactly. There may be a giveaway. But anyways, when we were at that market, we did cabbage.
Right.
And we did braised cabbage with a cranberry apple shrub.
Right.
Which has that acid. So it was just beautiful. It was actually made the cabbage a little bit sweeter than I would have expected. And it was just a very nice side to go along with the dinner.
Nice.
So those are some of the things. I'm also a lot of Southern Asian, so we're talking curries, dals, you know, spiced vegetables, a lot of those flavors. Of course, Japanese, I'm getting into sushi, you know, pickles, miso, ramen, and something that I'm working on a lot that I'm going to throw out there is seaweed.
Right.
Because I think that is something that's coming up. It's an up-and-coming trend. I know here on the west coast of BC, it's something that we're really working on. We want to bring back all of our bull kelp farms, not farms, but like reefs, and like a lot of our coast was protected, and we've lost a lot of that. So a lot of places are reseeding their kelp beds just to be able to give plant life, bring a little bit of life back into some areas, because without that kelp, it's the fish have nothing to protect them, right?
And as you've shown, and as I've tried, you can have seaweed in a variety of different ways. I mean, you've tried some popcorn seasoning. We've eaten it just dried and drier. So there's quite a few options, and that's just probably just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you can do with it.
Yeah. So that's a little bit my exploration this year. And so maybe next year seaweed will be a bigger trend, and I think more people...
Because you're going to make it a trend.
I'm going to make it a trend. But like I'm hooked on smoked kelp right now.
Right.
It's just absolutely amazing. Like it's just a nice little flake. I've been adding it into all of our dishes, you know, whether it's a finishing seasoning on top of something, or even like throwing it into a tomato sauce, which I did with cannelloni, which was absolutely
really
beautiful.
good.
So so those are some of the things, and I think those are going to reflect in a lot of our areas. And of course, you know, our farmers market are our global pantry, right? Like there's a lot of our farmers are bringing in some really interesting vegetables from other areas. So,
well, this kind of segues very well then into trend number 4, which is sustainable, smart, and local eating. And I feel like this might have been a trend from last year, like a little bit of a carryover, because I think it's very relevant to just what you were speaking to right now, actually.
of course, because last year we talked about sustainable, which we talk about every year.
It's like the key word.
I think it is the thing that everyone talks about. We talked a lot about zero waste. Like it was a lot about being really responsible, composting, recycling, all those things. And I think this year, I think that's still going on, but I think a little bit more, it's going to be into more sustainable practices, right? Like, so figuring out waste reduction, right? Waste in a restaurant is cost.
Right.
So anytime you're throwing away something, that's product going away. Now you've got to throw away product sometimes. You know, there's leaves on things that you're not going to use. But trying to figure out the ways to have the least amount of waste to be the most productive. You know, keeping it all really exciting for your customer as well.
Well, and just going to like sustainability and waste and just packaging is a huge part of it as well. And just as a personal note, I mean, I was really surprised. I mean, we do very well, and maybe we don't give ourselves enough credit here in Canada or in British Columbia or on the island in terms of, I mean, there's always room for improvement, and there's always going to be room for improvement. But, you know, for the fact that we don't have plastic bags here on Vancouver Island, you know, it's either bring your own bags or use a paper bag, is a great step forward. I mean, I was recently down in Florida for work early December, and I mean, recycling where I was sort of on the west coast of Florida, recycling was non-existent. Plastic bag use was rampant in grocery stores and everywhere you went. And it was like extremely disheartening. But then coming back here to see that we have gone so far the opposite direction is very encouraging. So, I mean, everything balances out, and it was just a really good reminder to, as much as, you know, we hear how much more we can do, and there is certainly room for improvement all the time. It is very nice to see that we are definitely a step ahead of other places, even in North America.
True enough. Well, and that's kind of us trying to be ahead of the food trends, right? So,
exactly.
As I was saying in the beginning, I think we start a lot of food trends in this area, and we're really focused, and food is very important to us here, especially on Vancouver Island. And I think that leads actually into my next one, reducing our dependency on imports.
Yeah, that's a hot topic, isn't it?
It's a very hot topic, and I think this all started last year with all of a sudden the talk of tariffs and all of these.
Or even going back to COVID too.
And true enough, right? Like it's really, and especially being here on Vancouver Island, I think it hits us very hard because we are on an island. It's a very large island, and I think a lot of people forget how big this island is and how many people are on it. We're definitely not Japan style, but we do have a good contingency of people and a lot of small towns up and down the island, all that are depending on food being shipped into this area. Even though we do have some great farmlands and stuff, a lot of our land is very expensive, especially for growing. It becomes a lot hard for a lot of farmers to be able to produce enough money to pay that mortgage and pay the expenses of running it. So I think a little bit is looking at us, and that's us becoming more dependent on local produce, supporting our local farmers. It may not be for now, but it may be down the road, you know, like 5-10 years from now. If we're not putting money into them now, they're not going to be here for sure. And if we do develop that, it's going to bring the prices down.
So speaking of which, you've kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of the very next food trend, which is ingredients that work hard, and sort of talking about those basic staples that you can really stretch across meals that save money and reduce waste ultimately, right? And you can probably find a lot of those ingredients here without having to have them shipped in.
Oh, exactly. I think this is one of those things, is really thinking about some of those staples, you know, that we can put into our pantry and that hold for a long time. So I'm thinking grains, beans, root vegetables, right? These are incredible ones, great building blocks for multiple dishes. And then it kind of, as we were talking, maybe bringing down that protein dependency and stretching things with, you know, a nice bean, you know, making something that's incredibly good for a base for a soup or a stock, thinking about a stir fry or having a nice side on a dish.
Yeah. Or just rather than traditional forms of protein, maybe, right?
Maybe, like exactly. Yeah. I'm not saying don't eat.
We love you, butchers, blah.
Well, and that's it. But, you know, prices are getting up there, and a piece of beef is a lot more than it used to be.
So either stretching it
and being able to work with it, using all the parts of it, you know, not just pulling a New York steak out and throwing it on the barbecue, because there's all the other parts of that beef that we can use to make beautiful stocks and beautiful flavors.
Right.
So. And then I think this goes back to my same thing with mushrooms and cabbages and legumes. And I think this is what I'm saying about a fiber forward diet. You know, I think those are, it sort of rolls together here. So
every time you say fiber forward, I think of William. I'm sorry.
It's
a bad association.
He is that guy, right? So when I'm talking mushrooms, it's great umami, a very good protein powerhouse, right? And then, of course, I was talking about cabbage, right? Super cheap, very durable, holds up. It's perfect for pickling, stewing, braising, all of those great ingredients for doing it. Of course, I keep getting into legumes, you know, and so, you know, good amount of fiber and protein, right? Especially if you're getting into more like yourself with a vegetarian diet, combining some of these ingredients together, that way you get all your amino acids.
For sure. Which is, I've been a vegetarian for 30 years, and that's never something I remember years ago was something that I really thought a lot about, right? Like being a vegetarian, you can survive truly on like chips and chocolate bars if you really wanted to, but being smart about it and finding those protein sources and fiber is something that's really important. Yeah.
And all these things really work well in this area because they're all cold climate crops,
Totally.
you know?
Yeah.
So they're foods we can, you know, and we can stretch them across a couple meals. So,
which again segues very well into the final trend number 6, which is
it's like I planned this.
It's like you planned this. Chef You and smarter home cooking, which I think plays very well with sort of what we were exactly talking about, is just kind of looking at being more curious, kind of looking at your skills, using some planning tools, and just kind of believing in yourself and your abilities. And I can speak to that because I have very few abilities in the kitchen, but there is one or two things I can do well. So maybe leaning into that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, and this was the one for 2026. I was thinking skills-based cooking.
Right.
And I think people getting a little bit curious about technique. And this goes back to what I was saying about having really good local foods, you know, and really getting really good flavors out of everything. And a lot of getting your amazing flavors is out of technique.
Right.
Right? Depending on how you sear something, depending on how you cook something down, you know, taking your time to cook. These simple little techniques will just increase flavors. So working on knife skills, you know, like understanding, you know, how cutting something big, cutting something small, how that affects us.
Or even understanding the different types of knives, which you have spoken to me about before.
Well, I went through this all yesterday with, because I'm ordering knives for my students and trying to figure out, they were short stocked on some knives. And I was like, I need a filleting knife. I need a boning knife. And they're like, well, they're out of stock right now. Can we change the color of the handle? Handle doesn't matter. It's the blade that I'm concerned about.
Yes.
So I was working on those. It was quite funny. So these are sort of those techniques, you know, braising, fermenting, learning some of these techniques to increase the quality of the food, even in bringing in, you know, some technical things. Like I was a little bit against some things like air fryers,
rice cookers,
the one-stop pot, you know,
right,
all of those kind of things. And now I'm kind of rethinking that I'm like, you know what, a lot of these things are fairly energy efficient. If you think about an air fryer compared to using your traditional oven, right? A lot less of
healthier too.
Healthier, smaller meal portions, you know, you can have a lot more control, and learning the techniques, because it doesn't work the same way as some of your traditional techniques, and maybe looking at how you can use this to make better meals. So I think those are something that are going to keep increasing in our kitchens. I mean, we've talked about it too, as just having a little toaster oven.
Yeah, exactly.
On the thing for certain things that we make, because it's not that we need to heat up a whole oven or whatever. So, but having these certain tools to make our food that much better and be more efficient and zero waste, I guess. So.
Yeah. So that's kind of, if we take a step back and we're looking at, like you said, some of the larger themes going forward for this year, it's kind of about, budget is a huge factor in it.
100%.
Budget, health, the environment, reduction of waste, and then also just enjoying your food, which is something that I think sometimes either we don't think about or we take for granted, or, you know, it's going to the far extreme, which is like posting on Instagram, but then like not actually enjoying the meal.
Right. Spending all your time taking pictures of food instead of actually enjoying it.
Right.
So, and I think, you know, there's lots of tools that we can use out there now to make life easier so that we can get at our food and be more, you know, especially like looking at AI as planning tools to help you with, if you've got an ingredient in the fridge that you're just like, what else do I need to, you know, just a quick little, hey, ChatGPT or
What
whatever.
can I do with feta cheese?
Exactly, you know,
Yeah.
and not using it as maybe, you know, just giving you a direction, like
Yeah.
helping you figure out what you can do with it. So I think those things are very encouraging. I think it's time to move on to my last one, which I wanted to get into, was all about, you know, what's happening, experience dining, right? What's driving the dining rooms, right? So that was something I was looking at. And I think, you know, there's a couple things to look at here. Definitely with communal tables is one thing. I still is a big fan of that. I think now we're starting to get to a point that people are realizing they need to be together
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And so doing those kind of things. I think smaller menus. I think a lot of restaurants are sort of, you know, you always go into a place and someone's like, you know what you should put on your menu is this.
Yes, absolutely.
Or you should put on this. And I think it's up to chefs to really, really make sure the food is really good, what they're looking at, and not hold back at those things.
For sure.
And of course, you know, thoughtful hospitality, which has always been my key thing. I always say when you walk into an establishment, they are your best friend.
Right.
You are inviting them into your home to experience a good time, and it's up to you to give them that experience. I think that's up to a lot of servers and stuff to really bring that forward to a lot of people.
I like that.
Yeah, so those are my talking points. And I know we have so many wineries and cideries and breweries and hotels. And, you know, there's a bunch of seasonal pop-up dinners that we're going to one shortly.
We are.
And hopefully we can get that chef in to have a quick conversation about the meal afterwards and how that went for him. But, you know, there's lots happening out there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this year. And I'll be really curious to see, even in a few months, to check out where these trends are going, which ones have really taken off, which ones maybe aren't as expected. But I think it should be a very good food year for sure.
I'm with you on that. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Edible Valley podcast. I'm Chef Jonathan Frazier.
I am not a chef, but I am Erin Haluschak, and filling in for Mr. William Stringer, who should be returning very, very shortly.
We're looking forward to having William back shortly.
Yes.
And being back at Jet FM.
Yes.
So that will be a great for us to be in studio there.